A wealthy couple stands in their housemaid's living room, staring at the walls. They're not looking at expensive art or luxury furnishings. They're looking at something that's about to shatter everything they thought they knew about the woman who's cared for their children for 5 years. What could a maid be hiding that would bring millionaires to tears? This isn't a story about charity. It's not about pity. It's about the moment privilege finally sees sacrifice and realizes how blind it's been all along. This is the story of Dolores Freeman, and the day her employers discovered who she really was. Before we dive in, I need to ask you something. Have you ever realized you didn't really know someone you see every day? Someone who's been right in front of you, part of your routine, but somehow invisible as a full person? Maybe it's the barista who knows your coffee order, the security guard who waves you through, the person who cleans your office or delivers your mail. How well do we actually see the people who serve us? What stories might they be carrying while they smile and work? Drop a comment if you've ever had that uncomfortable realization that you've been taking someone for granted. And stick with me, because this story will change how you see the people around you. Charlotte, North Carolina, the affluent suburbs where lawns are manicured by professional services and driveways hold multiple luxury cars. This is where Logan and Harper Whitford built their life. A sprawling estate with 6 bedrooms, a pool, and more space than 2 people and their young children could ever really need. Logan ran a successful investment firm. Harper managed a boutique consulting business from her home office. They worked hard, donated to charity, considered themselves good people. They had everything that success promises: comfort, security, choices. And they had Dolores. Dolores Freeman arrived every morning at 7:30. You could set your watch by her. She'd let herself into the side entrance, hang her coat in the mudroom, and begin the day that kept the Whitford household running. She prepared breakfast while Harper got ready for meetings. She helped the children, 6-year-old Emma and 4-year-old Caleb, get dressed and fed. She knew Emma liked her toast cut diagonally and Caleb needed his orange juice diluted with water or he wouldn't drink it. She remembered that Emma was allergic to strawberries and Caleb was afraid of the garbage disposal. She managed the estate, cleaning, organizing, grocery shopping, coordinated with landscapers and repair people. She did the invisible labor that made everything appear effortless. Fresh flowers always in the vase. Pantry always stocked. Fingerprints wiped from glass doors before anyone noticed they were there. But more than that, she cared. Genuinely cared. She read stories to the children with character voices that made them giggle. She noticed when Emma seemed sad and would sit with her, patient and warm. She celebrated Caleb's small victories like they were Olympic achievements. The children called her Miss Dolores and ran to hug her when she arrived. They trusted her completely. She was in many ways as important to their daily life as their own parents. Logan and Harper saw all of this. They appreciated it. They pay her well, better than market rate, they confirmed. They gave her bonuses at holidays. They treated her respectfully, always said please and thank you. They considered themselves good employers, excellent employers, even, but they knew almost nothing about her actual life. Where did she go when she left their home at 5 o'clock? What did she do on weekends? Did she have family, hobbies, dreams? They'd never really asked. It seemed like crossing some professional boundary, or maybe they just never thought to wonder. She was part of their household machinery, essential, valued, but not quite visible as a complete person with a complete life. Dolores's professional demeanor was flawless. She arrived on time, never called in sick, handled every task with quiet competence. She smiled easily, spoke gently, moved through their home with practiced efficiency. But there were hints they'd missed. Small things, barely noticeable unless you were really paying attention. The slight heaviness in her eyes some mornings quickly masked. The worn shoes under her uniform, practical but clearly old. The way she sometimes stood at the sink with her eyes closed for just a moment, as if gathering strength. When Harper offered her time off, Dolores always declined. "I'm fine, really. I don't need a vacation. I'd rather work." It seemed like dedication. They were flattered, even, but they never asked why some would prefer work to rest. She was grateful for the job in a way that seemed excessive, but they didn't question. "Thank you so much," she'd say when they paid her, as if they were doing her some enormous favor rather than compensating her for skilled labor. Logan and Harper lived in comfortable ignorance, not malicious but complete. They were good people, busy people, people insulated by their own privilege from understanding what life looked like outside their bubble. They assumed her life was simple because she seemed content. That's the American myth, isn't it? If you work hard and smile, everything must be fine. Struggle would show, wouldn't it? Need would announce itself. They didn't understand that pride and dignity often look like contentment. That survival sometimes wears a smile because a smile is required. Emma and Caleb loved Miss Dolores. Harper and Logan depended on her, but none of them really knew her. There was a wall between employer and employee, polite but absolute, and for 5 years, no one had thought to look over it. It was a Tuesday evening after the children were asleep. Logan and Harper sat at their kitchen island, the one Dolores had cleaned that morning until it gleamed, sharing a bottle of wine. Harper set down her glass. "Do you realize we know nothing about Dolores's life?" Logan looked up from his phone. "What do you mean?" "I mean, she's been with us for 5 years. 5 years. She knows everything about us. She knows which drawer I hide chocolate in. She knows you check your phone exactly 3 times during breakfast. She knows Emma's nightmares and Caleb's favorite stuffed animal's name. But what do we know about her?" Logan was quiet for a moment. Then, "I don't even know where she lives." "Not specifically." "Neither do I. Isn't that terrible?" It was terrible. The realization settled between them uncomfortably. This woman cared for their children daily, moved through their home, witnessed their lives in intimate detail. And she was essentially a stranger. "She knows our children's fears, our habits, our routines," Harper continued. "And we don't even know if she has children of her own." "She must," Logan said. "Right? She's mentioned. Hasn't she mentioned family?" They looked at each other, both realizing they couldn't remember. Maybe she had. Maybe they hadn't been listening. The guilt was sharp and sudden. They were good people. They voted for the right causes, donated to charities, taught their children about kindness. But somehow they'd failed this basic act of human curiosity, seeing their employee as a full person. "Maybe we should visit her," Harper said. "Bring her a thank you gift. Actually see her life. Not just benefit from her labor, without knowing anything about her. Have you ever realized you've been taking someone for granted? That moment of recognition can be deeply uncomfortable. It forces you to see your own blindness. Hit that like button if you know that feeling, and let's talk about it in the comments." They got Dolores's address from their payroll records. It felt slightly intrusive, looking at information they'd never bothered to actually ask about. An address in a neighborhood across town that neither of them had ever visited. Harper spent an hour at a boutique gift shop, assembling an expensive basket with gourmet items, fancy soaps, things that felt generous. Logan suggested slipping some extra cash in an envelope. "Maybe she needs it," he said, feeling magnanimous. Their assumptions were comfortable. Her home would be humble but neat, modest but clean. They'd meet her family, see where she came from, feel good about acknowledging her life outside their employment. They didn't recognize the slightly patronizing undertone in their own thinking, the assumption that they were being generous by noticing her at all. Saturday morning, they drove across Charlotte. The neighborhoods gradually changed as they left their suburb. Wider roads became narrower streets. Sprawling lawns gave way to smaller lots. New construction yielded older homes, well-maintained but clearly from different decades. "I didn't realize she lived so far away," Harper said, watching the scenery change. "She must spend an hour commuting each way," Logan observed. "Every day." It was their first uncomfortable realization. The logistics of her life they'd never considered. The time and gas money spent into their home. The energy required before she even started her workday. They found the address. A small house on a street of similar homes. Older construction, modest but not run down. Working-class neighborhood where people took pride in their properties despite limited resources. It wasn't bad, But the contrast of their own estate was stark and undeniable. They parked, suddenly uncertain. Was this intrusive? Should they have called ahead? Too late now. Harper grabbed the gift basket. They walked to the door. Logan's hand hovered over the doorbell. Maybe this is weird. It's fine, Harper said, though her voice wavered slightly. We're just visiting, thanking her, being human. He rang the bell. Dolores answered wearing jeans and a simple sweater. They'd never seen her in anything but her work uniform. It was jarring somehow, this evidence that she existed outside their employment. Mr. and Mrs. Whitford. Her surprise was obvious, then quickly covered with her professional warmth. What a lovely surprise. Please, come in. She stepped back, welcoming them into her home with the same graciousness she showed in theirs. But Harper noticed a slight apology in her gesture, the way she seemed to be seeing her home through their eyes. The gift basket suddenly felt inadequate, performative. Harper held it awkwardly as they stepped inside. The home was small, much smaller than even their guest house. But it was immaculate. Everything clean, everything in its place, everything well-maintained despite obvious age. The furniture was dated but cared for. The floors were spotless. I'm so sorry. I wasn't expecting visitors. Let me make coffee. Please, sit down. Harper's throat tightened. Why was Dolores apologizing? For what? For not having the kind of home that wealthy people might expect? They sat in a small living room that was somehow both modest and completely full of life. And that's when they started really seeing. The walls were covered in photographs, dozens of them, in mismatched frames that told their own story being collected over years. Dolores's children, they could tell by the family resemblance, at various ages. Graduation photos, wedding pictures, a young woman in a nurse's uniform, a young man in military dress, grandchildren's school portraits, art projects, crayon drawings taped to the refrigerator, handmade decorations everywhere, crochet blankets draped over the couch, quilted pillows with intricate patterns, evidence of creativity and care in every corner, things made by hand because buying them wasn't an option. A small bookshelf held worn paperbacks, children's books, medical textbooks that looked decades old. Then Logan noticed a wall above the bookshelf. He stood up, drawn closer, not quite believing what he was seeing. Diplomas, certificates, educational credentials, an associate's degree in early childhood education from Central Piedmont Community College, dated 1994, certificates from nursing assistant programs, medical terminology courses, healthcare training credentials, community college transcripts showing coursework in biology, anatomy, healthcare management. All of it stopped around the same time. Late 90s. Nothing recent. Harper moved to stand beside him, her hand going to her mouth. Dolores. Logan's voice came out rough. You have a degree? Dolores returned with coffee, saw what they were looking at. Her smile was gentle, sat around the edges. I started college right after high school. I wanted to be a nurse. Always wanted to help people. She set down the coffee tray. I was 2 semesters from my bachelor's degree when my husband died. The story emerged in quiet pieces. Married young. 2 children. Her husband working construction. She was working part-time and going to school. They were making it work. Barely, but work. Then the accident. A fall from scaffolding. No life insurance because they couldn't afford the premiums. Suddenly, she was a widow at 28 with 2 young children, and half a degree that couldn't feed anyone. I had to work. Multiple jobs. I did housekeeping during the day, night shifts at the hospital as a cleaning crew. Weekends I did catering when I could get it. But you were so close to your degree, Harper whispered. Dreams don't pay rent, Dolores said simply. My babies needed to eat. I needed health insurance. College could wait. Except it didn't wait. It just ended. Years passed. Her children grew. She kept working, kept surviving, kept getting by. The dream of nursing school stayed on the wall in old certificates, gathering dust. Are these your children? Harper pointed at the graduation photos. Yes. My daughter Denise, she's a nurse now. She finished what I couldn't. My son Marcus, he's in the Air Force. They're both doing well. 3 grandchildren between them. Her voice held pride in something else. Something that understood the cost of everything she'd sacrificed so her children could have what she couldn't. I help the grandkids when I can. Denise works double shifts sometimes. I watch them on weekends. The math was devastating. Logan could see it assembling in his mind. Dolores worked at their home full-time during the day. Harper had mentioned she sometimes saw Dolores leaving the hospital parking lot late at night. She'd assumed it was a coincidence, never made the connection. She was working multiple jobs. Still, at 53, after decades of this, barely any time for sleep, 0 time for herself. Why didn't you ever tell us? Harper's voice cracked. Why didn't you ask for help? For time? For anything? Dolores looked genuinely puzzled by the question. That's not how it works. You've been generous employers. You pay me well. Treat me with respect. My struggles aren't your responsibility. The dignity in that statement. The pride. But also the isolation. The weight of carrying everything alone because asking for help felt like crossing some unspoken boundary. Logan and Harper sat in stunned silence, understanding flooding in like cold water. This woman who cared for their children, who knew their lives intimately, carried this entire world. And they'd never even asked, never even wondered. They'd seen her every day for 5 years. But they'd never really seen her at all. Harper couldn't stop asking questions now. Questions she should have asked years ago. Questions that should have been asked the first day they hired her. Tell me about your husband. What was he like? He was kind. Dolores said softly. He worked hard. We had plans. The accident was sudden. One day he was fine, the next... She didn't finish. Didn't need to. What was it like, raising your children alone? Exhausting. Beautiful. Terrifying. I missed so much. Their school plays, sports games. I was always working. But they understood. They turned out wonderful despite everything. Why didn't you go back to school later? I thought about it. Kept thinking. Next year, when things settle down. But things never settle down when you're living paycheck to paycheck. There's always another bill, another emergency. My daughter needed braces. My son needed help with college applications. The house needed a new roof. There was always something more immediate than my dream. What was the dream? Dolores's eyes got distant. I wanted to be a registered nurse. Work in a community health clinic. Help people who couldn't afford private doctors. People like me who fall through the cracks. I wanted to make a difference, not just scrub floors, though there's dignity in that too. But you did make a difference, Logan wanted to say. You raised 2 successful children alone. You help your grandchildren. You care for our family. But he understood now that it wasn't the same. She wanted to use her medical knowledge, her education, her calling. Instead, she spent decades in survival mode, putting everyone else's needs ahead of her own. I'm 53 now, Dolores said. I tell myself it's too late. That ship sailed. Is it? Harper asked. Too late? Dolores smiled, but it was the saddest smile Harper had ever seen. I'm tired. I work so many hours just to stay afloat. When would I go to school? How would I pay for it? It's a nice dream, but dreams are for younger people with more energy and fewer responsibilities. Logan asked a question that was breaking his heart. Dolores, you take care of our family every single day, but who takes care of yours? I do, she said simply. That's how it's always been. The independence in that statement, the strength, but also the loneliness of it. This is the moment that changes everything. Not just for Dolores, but for anyone watching who's ever felt invisible or overlooked. Hit that subscribe button if you believe in the power of really seeing people. Share this story with someone who needs to remember that everyone has a deeper story than what we see on the surface. Harper started crying. Not polite tears, not the kind you dab away with a tissue. Real crying, the kind that comes from somewhere deep and shameful. She was crying for opportunities Dolores had missed while cleaning their bathrooms, for dreams deferred while she packed their children's lunches, For decades of sacrifice made in silence while Harper complained about trivial inconveniences. Logan's voice was thick when he spoke. You've given us so much. You've cared for our children, our home, our lives. And we've been so blind. We didn't even know you had a degree. We didn't know you'd been a semester from graduation. We didn't know you had dreams bigger than what we limited you to. You didn't limit me, Dolores protested gently. Life did. Circumstances did. You've been good to me. But Harper understood now that good to me was such a low bar. They'd paid her market rate and treated her with basic human decency and congratulated themselves for it. They'd never thought to ask what she needed, what she wanted, who she really was. You're fine, you said. Harper whispered. When I asked if you needed time off, you said you were fine. But you're not fine. You're exhausted. You're carrying everything. You gave up nursing school to survive, and you never got to go back. Dolores's eyes shone with unshed tears. I chose my children. I'd make the same choice again. But you shouldn't have had to choose, Logan said. That's what we're understanding now. You shouldn't have had to choose between your dream and your children's survival. The system failed you, and we benefited from that failure for 5 years without even noticing. The room was heavy with recognition, with shame, with the weight of privilege finally seeing what it had been blind to. Dolores reached across and took Harper's hand. It's okay. Really, I have a good life. My children are successful. My grandchildren are healthy. I have steady work. There are people with much worse. But that gentle reassurance made it worse somehow. She was comforting them. The woman who'd been carrying all this weight was comforting the people who'd been oblivious to it. That's when Logan and Harper both understood. This couldn't end with tears and apologies. Awareness without action is just another form of privilege. They didn't leave Dolores's house with just sympathy and guilt. They left with a plan. That week, Logan researched accelerated nursing programs. Programs designed for working adults who couldn't afford to quit their jobs. Evening classes, weekend intensives, practical training that built on the credits Dolores had earned decades ago. He found one at Queen's University. 16 months. Intensive but manageable. Expensive, but not impossibly so. Harper called Dolores on Thursday. We'd like to meet with you. Not at our house. Somewhere neutral. Can you meet us for dinner? That Saturday, they sat in a quiet restaurant. The three of them. No children, no work uniforms. Just 3 adults having conversation. Logan slid a folder across the table. We've been doing research. This nursing program would get you your RN license in 16 months. Dolores opened the folder hesitantly. Her hands shook as she read. We'd like to cover tuition, Harper said. Books, fees, everything. It's not charity. It's an investment. You've invested in our family for 5 years. Let us invest in yours. I can't accept this, Dolores whispered. It's too much. It's not enough, Logan said firmly. But it's a start. We'll adjust your hours to accommodate classes. You'll still be paid your full salary, but you'll work fewer hours while you study. No more night shifts at the hospital. No more weekend catering. Just school and manageable work. Tears were streaming down Dolores's face now. Why would you do this? Because you've given us more than we ever gave you, Harper said. Because you deserve to finish what you started. Because you wanted to help people and you should get that chance. And because, her voice cracked, because we should have seen you as a full person from the beginning. We should have asked. We should have cared enough to look beyond our own needs. Dolores was shaking her head, overwhelmed. I'm 53. I'm scared. What if I can't do it anymore? You've managed multiple jobs while raising 2 children alone, Logan said. You earned an associate's degree under circumstances that would have broken most people. You've been doing impossible things your whole life. This is just one more. The enrollment process began within weeks. Paperwork, transcripts from decades ago, placement tests that Dolores aced despite her fears. And then, on a Tuesday evening in September, Dolores Freeman walked into a classroom at Queen's University, 53 years old, surrounded by younger students, carrying a backpack her daughter had bought her and notebooks covered in her grandchildren's stickers. nervous, excited, terrified, hopeful. Her children came to her first day, beaming with pride. "Mom's going to be a nurse," Denise told everyone. "She started this journey before I was born. She's finally getting to finish it." Emma and Caleb didn't fully understand why Miss Dolores was going to school. Harper tried to explain. Because learning never stops and dreams don't expire. Miss Dolores had a dream she put away to take care of her family. Now it's her turn. But the transformation didn't stop with Dolores. Logan and Harper couldn't unsee what they'd learned. Couldn't unknow what they now understood about the invisible people who made their lives work. They created the Freeman Foundation, a fund supporting working parents in their community who were pursuing education, scholarships for healthcare training, child care assistance during evening classes, transportation help, textbook funds, all the small barriers that kept dreams from becoming reality. They used their network, Logan's business connections, Harper's consulting contacts, to create partnerships with community colleges and technical programs. Real pathways, not just good intentions. Harper started volunteering at community centers in Dolores's neighborhood, not as a wealthy benefactor dispensing charity, but as someone willing to actually show up and listen and learn. Their children learned something too, not the privileged lessons Logan and Harper had been taught. Lessons about being grateful for what you have, but different lessons about seeing people, about questioning systems that make survival so hard, about understanding that their comfort came at a cost someone else was paying. 18 months later, Dolores Freeman graduated with her nursing degree, her children there, her grandchildren waving homemade signs, Logan, Harper, Emma, and Caleb in the audience cheering like she was family, because she was family, not employee family, actual family. The relationship had transformed into something real and mutual and built on genuine understanding. Dolores took a job at a community health clinic in her neighborhood, working with patients who reminded her of herself. People struggling, people overlooked, people falling through the cracks of a system that wasn't designed for them. She used her medical knowledge, her training, her calling. Finally, at 55, she became the nurse she dreamed of being at 22. She still visited the Whitfords, but as a friend now, a guest, not an employee. They'd hired someone else to help with the house, someone they actually talked to, asked questions of, saw as a complete person from day one. Dolores' story inspired others, other students in her program, other families in her neighborhood, other employers who heard about the Freeman Foundation and started asking themselves uncomfortable questions about the people they depended on. It wasn't a perfect ending. There were still systemic problems. Dolores still lost decades she'd never get back. Her struggle was still harder than it should have been, but it was something, an acknowledgement, an action, a recognition that dreams don't expire and it's never too late to see someone fully. So let me ask you, do you really know the people who touch your life every day? The person who delivers your packages, the one who cleans your office, the teacher who watches your children, the caregiver who helps your elderly parents. Do you know their stories, their dreams, their struggles? Or are they just part of your routine, visible only when you need something, invisible the rest of the time? Share in the comments about someone whose full story surprised you, about a time you realized you've been blind to someone's reality. Let's have an honest conversation about seeing people. If this story moved you, hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs this reminder. Subscribe to Earthly Tales because these are the stories that matter, the ones that challenge us to be better, to see more clearly, to act with real compassion. Here's what we need to understand. Everyone has a story deeper than what we see. The people who serve us, who help us, who make our lives easier, they're not simple. Their lives aren't uncomplicated. Service work doesn't mean simple dreams or simple struggles. The people we depend on carry entire worlds we never ask about. Histories, heartbreaks, deferred dreams, silent sacrifices. Dignity isn't something we give people. It's inherent, but we can recognize it or ignore it. We can see people fully or reduce them to their function in our lives. Logan and Harper Whitford thought they were good employers, and they were by conventional standards. They paid well. They were respectful. They expressed gratitude. But that day in Dolores's home, they learned the difference between treating someone well and truly seeing them, between basic decency and genuine recognition of someone's full humanity. Compassion isn't just sympathy. It's not feeling bad when you learn someone's struggling. Real compassion requires action. It requires listening. It requires being willing to acknowledge your own blindness and do something about it. Behind every smile, every service, every silent sacrifice, there's a whole life, a whole story, dreams that got deferred, strength that goes unrecognized, dignity that persists even when nobody's looking. This is Earthly Tales, reminding you that the most important stories aren't always the loudest ones. Sometimes they're written on the walls of small homes we never thought to visit, carried by people we see every day, but never truly see. The next time someone serves you, in any capacity, remember Dolores. Ask a question. Show curiosity. Recognize that you're interacting with a complete human being with a complete story, not just someone performing a function. It might change their life. It will definitely change yours. Because once you really see people, you can't unsee them. And that's exactly how it should be.